Hi, I'm Boots Herrera from the Ateneo Art Gallery, and I'm here at Silverlens with James Clar. We're doing a walkthrough of his current exhibition, Share Locations. So James, hi, good to see you.
Hi, yeah, thanks for coming
I'm happy
out.
to meet you finally.
Yeah.
So can you, we started talking about the concept of your show and the title especially because it's quite, I think it's very relevant. I was telling James earlier that it didn't connect to me that it had to do with share location until I started looking at my computer or my phone. Ah, yes, that's what he meant. So maybe you can talk more about the concept and how it fits, all the works would fit into that.
Yeah, so the exhibition is called Share Location, and it's here at Silverlens. It's up until July 24th. The term share location is from, it's from like cell phone apps or tracking apps or, you know, your phone, I think anyways, is always like tracking where you are. So it's translating the physical space and your physical location and digitizing it. It became interested in that term, especially nowadays with like pandemic and, you know, everyone's living these kind of virtual lives and we're in these kind of cells and your bubbles and, you know, what does it mean to actually be in a physical space? You know, and that's like kind of the personal aspect of it. And then, you know, what does it mean to come from like a specific place? You know, we're here and we're sharing like a specific place of like Manila, you know, what does that mean? And how does the environment and the place that you're in affect how you think about yourself or how you think about other people? So the exhibition was kind of in development from my move from New York to here. So I'm kind of thinking about like how these places kind of influence my train of thought, and then thinking about like how that starts to, just kind of filter into the works that I'm doing.
So your transition from New York to Manila also had to do with that concept of changing location and sharing your current location.
Yeah, absolutely. So like now I'm in a new shared location, you know, and so this is like kind of the beginning of a new kind of chapter for my works. I had lived in Dubai for 6 years, New York for almost like 16 years, and then now I'm here in Manila. So it's just these different like places and the environment that you're in, like definitely kind of affects the ideas that you're thinking about, the people that you're talking to, and you know, I think art and culture is a lot about like sharing ideas, you know, and the ideas are also kind of like about being here and what does it mean to be here. Well, this is my first exhibition with Silverlens. We had worked together before and they showed me in art fairs and I've been part of the group shows and also Art Fair Philippines. And this is the first time I'm doing kind of a major exhibition here.
So let's talk about the works here in this area, which you mentioned earlier. You wanted to create a feel like you're in an airport waiting lounge.
Yeah, this is like an airport waiting lounge. As you come into the gallery, then we have a couple different works. One is A New Day and a New Night, and then Without You There's Less Data, which is here. A New Day and a New Night is this generative video piece. It's a clock, and what it is it's showing every minute. It's alive, like this is the current time, and then at this very minute, the sun is rising in this city. So every minute it'll change cities, depending, and it just kind of follows the sun as the sun is going around the earth. And then this is a new night. So this will show where the sun is setting, a city where the sun is setting. So there's a database of like 26,000 cities that I have with longitude and latitude. And so like it just changed minute, so now the sun is rising in this city. This is longitude and latitude, and it's sending it online to this web database where it finds the sunset time and the sunrise time for each longitude, latitude. And then I have this database and I sort it by minute. So every minute, then it'll pick it up. And it has to keep like updating it because of the tilted axis of the earth. So you get the two ends of the earth, where the sun is rising and where the sun is setting.
And what led you to create this work? What inspired you?
I mean, I think partially it's just because like I'm in a new city. So I'm thinking about like kind of, you know, new beginnings, new chapters. And then also, I mean, in terms of like my practice, I think a lot about the sun and the cycles of the sun, and artificial light, how that affects like, you know, daytime, nighttime. I think these are kind of different different cycles. So these two pieces are done on like these airport terminal TVs also, and they're kind of mounted on the wall, so you're kind of in this like airport lounge. And
then these 3 works?
Yeah, so these 3 works are called Without You There's Less Data. And it's kind of taking these aesthetics of like thought or emotions, and then they're algorithms. So these aren't video pieces, they're actually just kind of programs, and they're generative. So there's no start and there's no end. There's like a lens flare, a cloud, and then an eclipse. So it's kind of taking things that have no physical elements and then like visualizing it. So you're transitioning from like physical space into the air as we go like into the main gallery.
I'm curious about the format, because at first I thought it was a light box when I first came in, saw the show, and then now that we were talking about how it's a screen, and I didn't realize they're square format screens.
Yeah.
How did you? Was it easy to find?
Yeah, I mean they're industrial materials, so I'm like using a lot of industrial materials in my works. So I'm sourcing these. These are usually used in large billboards.
Okay.
So I'll
Alright,
find.
So they're tiled.
Yeah, usually they're tiled to create kind of large billboards. But I think like, you know, even though I'm doing video works, I still consider like my work to be sculptural. So the physical element is like really important. So like this is physical element, and you know this is a physical element. So they have like kind of a physical like properties to it.
So this work, Run Dog Wild, it's interesting how you came up with the video, and you told me how you would not be able to do this if you were in New York.
Yeah. So we had this like nice conversation about how, you know, certain things you can. She was asking about the artistic process now that I'm here, and is it harder now that I'm here? And I think that like, you know, similar to Dubai or New York, like every city or region has like advantages and disadvantages. There's certain things that you can do, you know, here that you would have a hard time doing in New York. So for instance, this piece we did during the lockdown, and we drove around the city and mounted a laser onto the car and shot the laser out onto the city, this animation, and then we locked a camera onto the laser. So as we're driving along, then the camera's picking up the projection onto the city, which is this dog kind of running wild and running through the city. So it's like this kind of virtual dog running through the city, and it's, you know, we're all, like again, it's like this kind of reaction to the pandemic where we have to lock in place, but all we want to be doing is kind of just running around the city, you know, and have that kind of freedom. So yeah, it's like this light animation. But I think like, you know, these works are, like I couldn't do this in New York because I'd probably get in trouble or cops would pull us over, you know, so there's interesting things that you can do here because it's just kind of a gray area, you know, where when people saw us like driving around, they just wave, you know, they think it's like kind of a funny thing to do, or motorcyclists would drive next to us because they'd see it and they'd just drive next to us to watch the dog like running next to them.
But it's quite eerie that the streets are empty. You know?
Right.
It wouldn't remind you immediately of Metro Manila.
Right.
But I guess you documented a specific period in our history with this particular work.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like, this is when the lockdown was at like 9 p.m. Or 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. So we had to go between the hours of sunset and then before we were like prevented from running around or from driving around. You know.
Before we go proceed with the yes.
Why a dog? You know, you see like, you think of like wild dogs like running through the city and stray dogs, and you know, at this point stray dogs have like, you know, more freedom than people. You know, they were able to kind of roam around. So, yeah.
If you were to give a Filipino title for this, it would be Ascal.
Ascal, yeah. Other people were commenting about that. Also, yeah, Ascal.
Because even how the dog looks, he looks like an Ascal, a mongrel.
And I like how that. I mean, because it's a laser, so it's always in focus, right? But then the light will react to the environment that it's projecting on, the surface that it's projecting onto.
Yeah, at first I actually thought these are two videos that you superimpose.
Oh, like post editing. Yeah, no, it's all done live.
Really, which makes it quite an interesting process as well.
Yeah.
It's actually very simple. I mean, it's a simple process, but the way the end result looks quite complicated. And then we were talking about how light has always been part of your art practice. Maybe just if you can give a general context to that.
So my background was film and animation, and I went to NYU for film, and then I kind of switched over into animation. During my grad school, then that's when I started to switch into kind of light art. And so, I studied film and 3D animation, and I used to spend so much time trying to create these 3D worlds and making them look realistic, But it started to occur to me, like when I'm getting, more into like kind of media theory, you go to a movie and you're watching a movie, you have this emotional reaction, like you cry, there's characters, But it's crazy because it doesn't exist. Like it's not physically there, those characters aren't there. It's just light bouncing off a screen into your mind, and then you have this kind of like emotional, psychological reaction. So, like, why do I have to use, if that's a light system, why do I have to use that light system? Like, why can't I make my own light systems? So I started integrating kind of technology and LED lighting and pulling, lights out of the screen into sculptural form. And so that was kind of the transition from like film, animation into kind of individual like light systems, or using technology to create kind of, kind of artistic systems.
And I think that's a good segue to this particular work. So, ball and chain. Okay. So, what's the concept? What brought you to this idea of putting all these car parts together?
Yeah. So, I had made the first version when I was in Dubai, and it's like very much this car culture. And you're just sitting in traffic, and I'm looking at light sources, or I'm looking at materials and trying to find interesting things that are to utilize. And so I just started like focusing in on these car headlights and the different shapes that they are. So I started collecting all these car headlights and then reconfiguring them in different shapes until I finally started to kind of figure out that, these car headlights it's like 90 degrees, and I could configure it into like a giant ball. So then it's using something that gives you motion or mobility to create something that like takes away mobility. So this ball and chain is locked down. The electrical wiring is like integrated into this giant ship chain, and it kind of keeps you locked in place. So it's about energy use also, and how much energy we can use during the day is kind of like our ball and chain.
Is traffic a problem in Dubai as well?
Yes.
It is?
Yeah.
Not as much as in Manila?
It's a different kind of traffic, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, everything was under construction, so sometimes you have to drive off road. Yeah, but so the fabrication is all different now. I'm 3D printing. I do a lot of 3D printing now for the spacing. There's metal, these kind of metal hubs that were created for it also.
So the 3D printed parts are the
these spacers.
Connectors. No?
Yeah.
Basically, and you've used that technology also in.
Yeah, so there's a couple other works. The hanging light pieces has 3D printed parts. So I think the show is like there's really like high tech, low tech at the same time. Like they'll be like dragging microphones, but then using like this really complicated system. Yeah.
Even this work, which is, it doesn't really have a light embedded on the work, but it it makes.
But it's still like it's like this analog use of light.
Yep.
So this is America. This is like a US flag, and it's made from this special highly reflective material. So if you take a picture of it with flash, it'll shine back the flag in this kind of really hyper real color. Yeah, you can try
it with my phone earlier. I couldn't. The flash you should have. So this is a work that needs light or needs a flash.
Needs flash, yeah.
So if it's in a museum, it should have that label of please use your flash.
Please, yeah. Instead of not use the flash, please use flash, yeah.
You see it?
Yeah, yeah. If it comes from like the source, yeah.
Can that light?
Yeah.
Parang, can you go closer?
Yeah.
I think it will appear on the screen. Eh?
Yeah.
It's like this reflective, it's like safety material. They use it, I think, sometimes for like jackets, you know, like crossing guards or cops use them.
So the color pattern, it's embedded on the fabric?
It's embedded in the fabric,
okay.
yeah.
So it's not like you had to print it on a kind of
it was like
fabric.
3 separate types. So it's like the spectrum type, and then that one, and then the stars is a different type.
Yes, I was about to ask.
Right, yeah, for any flag. Well, I mean, mostly because I came from the States, and then also I think America is really good at getting attention to itself and manipulating the media, you know? Like if nobody listens to America, does America exist? You know, it's like, it's always like trying to like pry for attention. So like when you take a picture, it just sort of, it's like, it's at its grandest, you know?
But otherwise it's just dark.
Otherwise it's dark, yeah. Yeah.
So you haven't exhibited this in
No.
in the US?
Yeah, everything is new, except for Ball and Chain. I think is the only one that hasn't that's been seen before. This one's been seen, and that's a new version of it also. Yeah.
So what was your transition like from New York to Manila?
What was the
how has it been?
You know, I think I left in the middle of the pandemic, and New York was it was hit really hard with the pandemic,
right.
You know.
So it was a good time for you to get out of the city.
I think it was like everyone was just kind of figuring out what to do, you know, because there was no art openings, there was nothing happening, and you know, they had like a really bad, the pandemic was like really, really bad there. So I think it was just kind of, you know, a lot of people found that maybe you can do things outside,
right?
You know.
But you already made that decision before.
I had actually made that decision before, yeah.
So
it was just kind of timing, yeah. It was just like, okay, now we'll do this, yeah. Yeah.
And then with your move to Manila, of course, you've been collaborating, meeting new collaborators within the artist community, which brings us to this particular work.
So this is Hey, I'm Walking Here, and it's a video piece. It was done, the performer is Josh Serafin, who's collaborated before with like Issa Jackson, and he was a Bellas Artes, also like a resident there. We were introduced to each other over a year ago. I had this concept for a video piece, and then so I was asking around for different performance artists to work with. And he was great, like he kind of understood it right away. And he's just like really, his physique is like really a dancer's physique. It's a video piece that's kind of focusing on your feet. Your feet are your direct contact to the physical location that you're in. So this is like the immediate like touch to the environment and to, you know, the surface of the space. So it's just focusing on the feet, and then what emotions or what can you tell just with the feet. So The video follows him walking through, it's in Mandaluyong, and sometimes he's walking, he's crawling, he'll be dragged, sometimes he walks on air. So it's just like this range of emotions that he's showing. And then he's just dripping water. So he has these tubes that are connected to him, and then we're just kind of filling it up with water, so he's always dripping water. It's kind of like this surrealistic element, but it's also, the Philippines is like a collection of islands, and you have to kind of pass through water to get here. So this person just kind of like walked from the sea and is now walking through the city and just kind of having these experiences.
Have you done similar works that are performative and collaborating with an artist?
Not too much.
First time?
No, this is new. Yeah, this is new. And actually, generally, this exhibition is more has more video works. I think it's also, as we were talking about before, in terms of access to materials or how it affects your artistic production. The film industry here is really established, and there's a lot of a lot of talent and facilities to making films. So if you can reach out to them or collaborate with them, then you can also create kind of these art films that are a little bit more difficult to do, I think, elsewhere. Yeah.
Well, that's good to know. We do have a thriving community of filmmakers, young filmmakers, so that the industry is growing.
Yeah.
So it's good that you are getting access to that part of the art community, as well as with performing artists.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's great to have I think I was just saying, those are the kind of the conversations that you're having, and then the materials or the production that you get in contact with, then you start to use that in your process.
I'm curious about conversations you had with Serafin, no?
Yeah, Josh, yeah.
How did he respond to your concept?
Yeah, he loved it. I mean, he was super game.
Did he had some input in it as well, or in terms?
I would talk to him and I'd say, okay, you're gonna walk. There's a set of emotions that I want to express. You can, because you're a dancer, maybe you have maybe ways of interpreting that. So there's sometimes where he's dancing and he's doing certain moves, and so now it's going to start. This is where the beginning is.
So we've gone through the floating part. No, did you see that? It made you stop and look, because it's sort of he started flying.
It's nice to get this. Yeah, things that are a little bit off or unreal.
Then you have those cigarette butts in the gutter. But the street actually looks relatively clean for Metro.
He was amazing.
Yeah.
He didn't complain at all. I'm dragging him through He's literally in the gutter. What's that? There's this roundabout in Mandaluyong.
In the Rotonda near?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, City Hall. Yeah, that's why it's always clean. Yeah, just around that.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's off camera, we have a tricycle. There's a trike. It was a film crew of maybe 12 people working on this, and then there's a trike with metal bars sticking out from it so that he could pull himself up or grab onto it and be dragged.
But you have the footage with the whole, from afar.
Yeah.
That might be another work by itself.
Yeah, the documentation. Yeah. Well, I have the documentation also for the dog, the laser dog. We set up a 360 camera on there. Yeah, because I was telling James earlier that it's good to also talk about the processes, different phases of getting to this piece, especially with that piece later. Now we'll talk more about that. Yeah. Okay. So this work, this is another work that uses 3D printed elements. No? Maybe you can talk about the concept. So this is sun prism. It's kind of this geometric prism of light, and it was designed in 3D. So I designed it all in like using 3D software, exact to the dimensions, and then this way I can 3D print these joints here, and kind of construct this 3D form. So there's this small sailing ship, and the sailing ship is going towards the sun, and it's kind of sailing in different like oceans or different planes. So you get like, you know, it's almost like a structural storyboard, I guess, with this sun, like, you know, it's like, I think all the pieces here are about movement and moving from one space to the next. So the sailboat is kind of sailing off into the sunset.
And the light has different tones, no? Different
Right.
colors.
Right.
So how did you manage that?
So these are
LED.
light filters. Yeah, it's LED with light filters.
With
Yeah.
light filters, okay.
Yeah, so you get this kind of gradient of the sky.
And it's really meant to be mobile, no?
Yeah. It has the single point allows
a
it to kind of
subtle
spin
movement.
around.
No questions from the audience?
I was wondering if there was a reference to the gallery.
Yeah, you can ask that because I asked.
Right. Yeah. No, not directly. Yeah. But it could be.
Yeah.
Sure. Yes.
Because it's very timely. No?
Yes, it is.
But it's really just sailing into the sunset. I
Yeah.
think it also has, it's a good parang reference to Amorsolo, you know, the concept of light, how light has always been his subject in a way on most of his works. But for James, of course, it's in a different form. Okay, so we go to that other.
Yeah, so we'll just go to this
piece,
room
which-
here.
I really like how you worked with the space, no? How you responded, and I think most of your exhibits, the artist would always respond to a specific space like this in different ways, no?
So this is called Lawnmower Man, and it's a projection of a light switch at the same size as a light switch. And then I'm recorded myself flipping on and off the light switch. As it's turning on and off, then this kind of virtual version of the light switch controls the real light. So it's the virtual controlling the real. And so it's called like the Lawnmower Man, which is a reference to this 80s science fiction movie, where at the end, the character uploads his consciousness to the internet, and then he makes all the phones in the world ring at the same time. It was like in the 90s. It's kind of like
What's the title of the
the Lawnmower Man.
Lawnmower Man.
Yeah. Yeah, but we're at this point now where the physical, you know, the digital is controlling the real, you know, where we have like influence over the physical space.
It looks so simple, but I'm sure it was quite the planning, the design for this particular work also.
Yeah, there's, yeah, it's a microchip.
Yep.
So there's like a Adreno, a Raspberry Pi microchip. I filmed it and then edited the film, and then I timed it out, and then I programmed the timing to the light switch. And actually also it's like Morse code. So I'm signing my name. It's flipping on and off
Right,
in
right.
Morse
In a
code.
particular
Yeah, in a
pattern,
particular
spelling
pattern,
your
yeah.
name.
Yeah, so it's my signature.
So how is the light actually controlled?
Behind
Is
the
it
wall,
there?
there's like a microchip.
Well, you use technology, but you've presented it in a very simple. It looks very simple, but actually it's complex.
Right.
And then, but this work, which obviously incorporates video, light, and sound. Can you give us a context and the concept of how this work came about?
Yeah, so this piece, what we did is we have a tricycle rider, and he's driving around these two karaoke machines that are dragging the microphones from the karaoke machines behind it as it's driving around the city. It's taking basically the vibrations of the road, and it's kind of converting the physical space into sound. So the two karaoke machines kind of act as two people riding around in this in the tricycle and talking about the space and talking about like what it means to be here and what is the space, you know, what does the space mean? It's almost like the city is like singing itself.
So, well, this is an obvious question, but I'd like to know how you incorporated, how you thought of the idea of incorporating the karaoke into this work.
Right, yeah. I mean, karaoke is like very Filipino. It's very much part of our culture. Everyone's singing karaoke at parties. It's a way of like expressing yourself. So, yeah, to use the karaoke machines is kind of like using this technology that is kind of part of who we are. And instead of like, you know, a person singing, then it's just the city singing.
And then I remember earlier you were telling me about how people were concerned about the microphones. Can you talk more about that? Because I think it tells a lot about how important, how much we value a karaoke machine.
Yeah, it was funny. So we're driving around with the tricycles and had the karaoke machines, and these microphones are dragging behind it, and so many people would stop or try to stop us or honk at us because they were concerned about the microphones of the karaoke machines being dragged around. But it's funny, like everyone was like super concerned with it, so we had to keep like making them pass and go ahead of us. And there was two. I mean, we had like the barangay Mandaluyong was there. We had blocked off like before and after the tricycle driver, where two motorcyclists of the barangay kind of directing traffic to allow us to shoot.
So how did you convince the tricycle driver to work with you on this project? I wonder what he was thinking.
yeah. Well, he was fine. I mean, he was okay. He didn't really. I think he was just kind of doing his job. He was found by. I think he was like found by the barangay of Mandaluyong, and then we just used him for the shoot. The film crew also like the producer found him. And he didn't have any issues driving around. I think like he was into it in that he was just trying to do his job. Like he was trying to make sure that nobody was interrupting the shot.
James, I have a question. Why did you deliberately omit the audio, the sound in both works, and here you highlighted it?
Right. So I think like these two pieces with the dog and the walking person are more about the visual, you know, and the sound, the city sings at night is really, you know, because we're using karaoke machines, it's like really about the translation of sound, the translation of the physical environment. Here we're driving around, and it's also like, you know, it's during the pandemic, it's during lockdown, so I guess we could have like sounds in there, but you know, we're directing in the car. We were directing where to go and kind of navigating traffic, and also like with the walking person, because it's like one continuous shot. We're actually, the sound was of the film crew trying to move. You know, there's the barangay trying to move traffic. There's the film crew trying to like pour in water.
Right.
They're trying to balance out the tricycle as he's like dancing. I'm there, I'm yelling, I'm saying like, be angry, be happy. Okay, now you're walking on air. So the sound is kind of more, not distracting, not part of the piece.
And I'm curious about your creative process in choosing the location, especially it's chosen very middle class images of Manila.
Right.
Yeah. How was it?
I mean, I think for this piece, it works because you want like something that's more neutral, you know? Because if you have a neutral like background or neutral like just like city background, then it's kind of like it pans across like more of the city than just specific areas, you know? So it's not super identifiable. The walking man, hey, I'm walking here. was done in the roundabout in Mandaluyong so that we could do a continuous shot, so we don't have to stop with traffic or traffic lights. And then for Run Dog Wild, we were driving around. It was me and Corinne de San Jose in her car driving through from downtown Manila all the way to UP. And we wanted to be on the highway because this is where we can drive fast. And we had to this, yeah, as I was saying before, we had this kind of window of time, like maybe 2 hours between sundown and lockdown. Yeah.
What about, I noticed in this particular piece, there are daylight scenes and then it moves over to evening. So how long was the taping?
Yeah, we had
filming?
like, I had like imagined it being like a conversation that went from the daytime to nighttime. So it actually was a transition between like, you know, from like daylight hours into nighttime hours, because it's like you have this like conversation through the night, you know, or even into the morning. You know, it's like these like very like enthusiastic drunken conversations about like identity and cultural identity, and then, you know, yeah, so the time span is supposed to change within it. Yeah.
And earlier you were saying that you were hoping to go through the tunnel.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we wanted
gives a
to
different
go through the tunnel
sensation.
to kind of go through from like one city to the next. And also I think it gave like a nice transition too.
Right.
And also the sound element of like the concrete being blasted and then going to a tunnel give like a different like kind of sound aspect to it.
Can't go under the tunnel.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly,
Yeah.
that's why.
That's right. Yeah. So we couldn't. Yeah. Actually, we
needed the
weren't allowed to
barangay.
do that.
Especially with a mic.
It was funny. I mean, you know, we're driving around and like everyone's just like, you know, they hear this sound and
And they were
Yes.
concerned about the microphone.
they were more concerned about like the microphones and the karaoke machines. Yeah. Sometimes you'll see people driving by and they're just kind of smiling, or they think it's like kind of weird or absurd.
Yes, the layout of the screen. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so the screen layout is actually done in a kind of a primitive block form of a tricycle itself. So you have the 3 small screens at the bottom are the wheels, and then this is the driver, and then this is the caboose. And it's edited in a style that's, you know, it's multi-screen, but the video is synced. So the system syncs the video, and sometimes it overlaps multiple videos or multiple screens. It's just trying to reflect the, you know, the subject matter of like cultural identity is very complex. So you have these different thoughts, and it's a conversation, but it's also a debate, it's also an argument. And you want to try to reflect that in the video style, and then also in the system itself, which is why it's, you know, it's very raw. The computer system and the computer components are seen. So you have the system kind of displaying the information of the screen on the video, and then the video itself. So it kind of reflects the complexity of that topic.
I actually like that shot with at the corner of the street. Yes, with the house there. Because it reminds me of paintings of old Manila houses that by the Dimasalang group. So that it brings back that it recalls those imagery.
That's also a striking image. Yeah.
So thanks, James, for that wonderful conversation. It actually gave us more insights, deeper insights on your work. I think the work is only half of the experience. It's very important also to hear the words, the ideas, the processes, the narratives coming from you especially.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for coming to the exhibition and doing the walkthrough with me.
Congratulations on the show. And we look forward to your next exhibit.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you.